Started. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here with me tonight. I'm Kathy Williams, and this whole evening is freeform. So I talked about getting clear, I talked about getting unstuck, and that's only relevant to you in the areas where you're not clear and you're feeling stuck, right? So I have some tools to share, and we can go in any sort of direction. My husband always says, yes.
Are you going to be talking about access bars? Because that's mostly what...
I will be talking about access consciousness and the tools of access consciousness. I can talk about the bars a little bit, but since we won't be doing the bars, we won't spend a lot of time on that. Because the tools of access consciousness are multitude of things that you can use every day to be more creative, to have more clarity, to not take on everybody's stuff if you're one of those people who does, like me. I see some nods here. To get out of your own way, to get creations like books and things into the world, and essentially to create a life you love. And I discovered access consciousness. I became a facilitator of access consciousness about 7 years ago, and life just keeps getting better. I personally have used the tools I used to be one of those people who was a perfectionist, and I kind of dropped that because I realized that was stopping me in a lot of areas. For example, I've written in and for several books now, and one of the things that it was preventing me from doing was actually getting that stuff into the world, because I could edit for 40 more years and it might never be perfect and always be on my computer, but what would be the use? So as I said, we can go in a lot of different directions, and I'm totally open to talking about the bars and talking about different things. But one of the first things I wanted to talk about is, a lot of times we're trying to get life right, or at least trying to not be wrong, right? So when we're making our choices, we're looking at our choices like, okay, how do I make the right choice? And meanwhile, kind of thinking how do I not make the wrong choice? That's the bigger deal than making the right choice. And one of the things that Access has really invited me to is, what if there's not a right or a wrong? It's just every choice you make gives you more information. Okay? So I make a choice, I turn right, and then I find that there's construction, and I'm like, oh, didn't know construction was on this street. I don't have to make myself wrong for making that choice, just oh, okay, new choice. Right? So from every choice, we now have more information, we now have more awareness, and we also have the ability to make a new choice. And that's one of the biggest gifts. When you can find that, oh geez, again, I'm trying to make the right choice. What happens if I just entertain making this choice for a moment? It feels kind of heavy. It feels like there's possibility here. Right? There's a sense of lightness or a sense of heaviness when we entertain any choice. And sometimes it's more clear than others, right? Sometimes we're I'm really excited about going to the party, right? And other times we're just not feeling it. I want to stay home in my pajamas. And then other times it's a little bit less clear, right? So we have questions for that. I don't have a lot of answers for you tonight. I have a lot of questions, because when we ask questions, we're opening the door to new possibilities. We're opening the door to beyond what we already think we know. When we're making conclusions, we're only making conclusions within the box of the known, the box of what we already know, whether it's from our personal experience or something we've read or our friend's experience or something like that. When we ask a question, all of a sudden we're opening the door to some new information. I'll give you an example. I have a friend who was coming to Maui and she was going to give a workshop, and she said, Kevy, what would it be like if we had a class at the beach? And I said, that would be really fun. So she said, well, which beach do you suggest? And immediately one came to mind, right? When something comes to mind like that, do you usually trust it, or do you usually kind of like hem and haw and try to second guess yourself and override your awareness? And
You don't trust it.
you don't trust it.
No.
Okay.
It's like answers on a test.
So if A comes to mind, you don't mark A.
Exactly.
Oh, really?
And that turns out usually to be the right one.
Exactly. Okay, anyway, Charlie Young Beach came to mind. And then I said, well, Charlie Young doesn't have enough shade. Notice how I didn't ask a question, right? I could have said that to myself. It doesn't have enough shade. And then, is there a spot that does? Right? That's the beach that came to mind. Is there a spot that does have enough shade? So anyway, I overrode my awareness, as most of us are trained to do. And I said, Cove Park. So we all met at Cove Park Beach, and the tide was super high, not enough to put a bunch of chairs out. And so we all walked down to Charlie Young Beach and sat in an area where there was a bunch of shade. Okay? So when something pops in and you don't question it and you go to a conclusion, what if you asked a question? There's not enough shade is my conclusion. Huh. Is there enough shade? Is there a spot with shade? Yeah. And I might not know about that place with shade, but if I get a sense of like, there's a possibility here. Not like a contraction, but a sense of, yeah, it seems like there might be. Then I could go check it out. Okay? And find that, oh yes, there is shade that I didn't know about. Okay? So asking questions is one of the greatest tools I have in the toolbox. Why? Because they always lead to more possibilities. And we can discuss that more as the evening goes on. Am I talking for 1 hour, or it's like till 7:45?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you were like time for question and answer.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I could talk for like 5 hours and not even know what I'm going to talk about. But that's like, that's because your questions are super useful. I would love for you guys to ask questions if something's unclear or if something's coming up for you, because if you have a question, chances are someone else has that question too, right? And that's going to open up more possibilities for all of us. There is no such thing as a stupid question. There might be stupid people who don't ask questions, but no such thing as a stupid question. And stupid is really just when you cut off your awareness. Like when I had the awareness, Charlie Young, and then I cut off my awareness by saying there's not enough shade. That was kind of stupid. That's okay. It's not a bad thing. All right. So the second tool I want to introduce you to is the idea of light and heavy. So when you're sensing that there's a possibility, there's a sense of lightness or enthusiasm, or and when you're sensing like, no, there's a sense of contraction. So we'll explore this using something super obvious, all right? And then you can start to apply it to things in your life. And I wish I'd brought you paper. I guess I have these flyers if you want to write on something.
I can go grab some.
Yeah, that'd be
If you want
great.
some words and just play.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. So the idea of light and heavy, and we're going to do an exercise. Again, this is really obvious. So what I'd like you to do is become aware of your body, particularly, your torso, head. Okay? And just ask yourself, just say to yourself, okay, I'm sitting or I'm seated now. Okay? And get a sense of where that lands in your body and how you know that. Okay? And now say to yourself, I'm standing.
What?
I'm standing. And get a sense of that and the difference in your body. Okay? When you tell yourself something that's not true. Okay, we'll do another. Okay. So is anyone's name in here Fred? No one's name is Fred. Okay, we can use that then. Right? All right, so say to yourself, my name is, and then say your name. Yep. Now say, my name is Fred. So when you say these two different things, do you get a different sense in your body? Yeah, what's the difference? Yeah, light and heavy. Yeah. And some people will feel that more in their chest. Some people will feel it more maybe in their throat. You know, for a lot of people it's the chest, torso, solar plexus sometimes, right? So as you begin to gauge these different things, then you can start to use it with, well, what food would my body like to eat? Hey, body, would you like some chocolate? Okay. How about now? Right? So you become more aware about what is actually going to create a greater possibility for you. Does that make sense? So applying this to the beach situation, okay, is there a spot where there's shade? Then I would have had a sense of lightness. Even though my logical mind can't pinpoint that spot in this moment, there's an awareness. There's an awareness. Okay, if your logical mind could have figured out all the problems in your life, it would have already. Okay? But you have greater awareness that can actually lead to greater possibilities, which will help you figure out all the problems in your life. And one of the things that might create more ease with the problems is to stop calling them problems.
Agreed.
Stop calling them problems.
Oh.
All right, she's got some paper here for you.
I don't know yet. What did we determine?
Just in case you like to take notes or write something, yeah.
I thought we were doing exercise.
No. Because there's going to be a quiz at the end.
Oh. A, it's answer A, of course.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, you were talking about earlier, we've learned to override our awareness, right? A lot of times we'll get a sense of it feels off, something feels off, and then we do the thing anyway, or we go anyway, or we say yes anyway. Why is that?
Peer pressure.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes peer pressure.
Fear of rejection.
Fear of rejection, fear, yeah.
Fear of being wrong.
Fear of being wrong, right? Oh, if I chose that and then it, you know, then it didn't work out, then at least it wouldn't be my responsibility, right? Another one is not wanting to make other people uncomfortable, right? An example I often give is, let's say you're somewhere and you need a ride and you're like, well, I could get an Uber or I could walk, which would take a really long time, or I could, and then someone offers you a ride and you say, okay, great. And then you get this, right? What do you do then? Do you continue and just go with them, right? I mean, it might not be that they have a bad intention, but it might be that they get in an accident or that they leave way later than you wanted to leave, or you know, maybe you do not want to be raped that night and left. You know what I mean? Like, there's, like, what do you choose in that situation? I've just said yes. Now what? Right? Do I make that person uncomfortable? Risk that anyway, right? I mean, what do you choose? Yeah. A lot of us have been taught to override our awareness and be the nice person. Does that ever really work out? No. It always creates greater to follow your awareness, even if in the moment it feels super uncomfortable. Like, what do I do now? Okay.
I was told by a spiritual teacher once that you should never make yourself stay someplace where you don't feel comfortable, where you don't want to be, because it's like a self-betrayal.
Yeah, it is. It's
So I've had to get up from, situations where it was a little uncomfortable and embarrassing and walk out, just because I didn't feel right being there, people look at it and all that.
And that's following your awareness.
Yeah.
She's talking about getting up and being a little uncomfortable about that. But yeah, it always creates something greater to follow your awareness. So that's a really useful thing to do, to just look at, like, where am I unwilling to follow my awareness? Where have I not followed my awareness in the past and then it didn't work out? Where have I followed my awareness and it really worked out? Who am I unwilling to lose? That can be a big one for people, because belonging is so important to us. All right, so the first tool was asking questions. And we're going to come back to asking questions here and there through the evening. The second tool is light and heavy. What's light is true for you. What's heavy is not in this moment. Heavy doesn't always mean a no. Okay? It often means ask more questions. All right, like I joked. Oh, okay, buddy, would you like some chocolate? Heavy. Okay, how about now? Right? Like heavy is not always heavy forever. It could be like I'm doing some classes in Europe this summer, and we were asking some questions and getting a venue and different things, and then I asked, is now really the time to be choosing this? Because it just didn't seem to be coming, and it was heavy. So it's like, oh, okay, maybe explore it more tomorrow or next week, right? Because we get more information. Or maybe, we're looking at a venue and it's booked, and then by next week it'll be open because someone's canceled, right? So continuing to tap into your awareness when you're asking questions. So I mentioned not making something a problem. Now the thing is, a lot of us create problems to prove what a good problem solver we are. We're really so cute. Right? As if we wouldn't have enough to do or have all sorts of fun things to do without problems, right? Or how many people fit problems to prove that they fit in. I'm just like you, I also have problems. Carolyn Mace talks about that's why a lot of people don't heal, because they commiserate over their thing that they have together. You can continue to reaffirm that you have that problem. So what if a problem is only a possibility with a judgment attached to it? Because if you have a problem, it's because you've judged that it's a problem. So I talked a little bit earlier about this right and wrong idea. So those are polarity, okay? Right and wrong, good and bad. Polarity, which involve judgment. So one of the easiest tools that we can use to help us come out of judgment, and on my website I have a whole free class on this. It's called Interesting Point of View. And it's every, yeah.
Say that again? What?
Interesting point of view.
Okay, thank you.
So if you're willing to see that every thought, feeling, emotion, judgment, conclusion, criticism, attitude, opinion you have is just a momentary thought taken at a moment in time, and it's always changeable. And you can see that it's just an interesting point of view. And everybody else's opinions, attitudes, judgments, conclusions, considerations, beliefs, they're also interesting points of view. Which means you don't have to make their judgments and opinions true or false, right? You don't have to align and agree and say, yeah, that's real, or resist and react to it. Either way, when you're doing either of those two things, you're giving it energy, right? So how much do people actually feed what they don't like by making someone wrong or making someone bad? I mean, you could say that's how our president got elected.
Say what?
So many people gave energy to him, right? Fed him energy, whether they loved him or hated him, they all gave energy in that direction. Okay? Okay, so when you dislike something, you're resistant to it, you're giving it energy. When you're also agreeing with it and making it right, you're giving it energy. Okay?
So what you're talking about is equanimity.
Equanimity, yeah. Allowance,
Yeah.
yeah. Where you're just allowing everything to be what it is. And this tool is amazing for that. Okay, if you'll walk around all day and just say, oh, interesting point of view, I have that point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view, that person frustrates me. And because if someone can push your buttons, you're not interesting point of view about them. You're making them wrong in some way. Yeah, they shouldn't be doing that, which is a judgment. Okay? Pushing against life as it is showing up. That doesn't mean you can't change things, right? I'm not saying if someone's stepping on your foot, let them continue to step on your foot. You can without judging them. Right? You can take action without judging people, including yourself. So, maybe we'll explore this a little bit. All right, so does that make sense? Like, I would like to address questions about this. Okay, so I'd love you to choose something. Okay, this is what's popping in. We can use this in all sorts of situations, but do you have some part of your body that you judge?
Yes.
Is there anyone who doesn't? All right, it's safe to say we can use it on this? All right, okay. So what you're gonna do, we'll take a couple of minutes and just about that part of your body, interesting point of view. Okay. And I'll lead you a little bit and I'll let you have some space to say it to yourself. And we'll do it in a couple of different ways so we can explore. All right, so pick that part of your body and allow some judgments to come to mind. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view, my body should be different. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view, I'm aware I have this point of view. Interesting point of view, it should be different. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view, I don't like how it is. Interesting point of view. 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 Interesting point of view, it should be different. Interesting point of view, it hasn't changed in the way I'd like it to change. Interesting point of view, it should change. Interesting point of view. 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 So, what did you experience?
Interest. Interesting. Yeah. Just the word interesting
Yeah.
is very neutral and interesting.
Did you have some more space around it? So I see some nods. Yeah. Yeah. Now imagine doing this with someone who's annoying you. Interesting point of view, they should be different. Interesting point of view, they're so opinionated. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view. My phone, I'll admit this to you, my mom's name is IPOV Mom. Right? So I can get on there and be like, oh, yep, interesting point of view. Gotta remember. Interesting point of view. I got that from a friend who used it on her mom. And after a year and a half of using it, her mom said to her, you know what? I admire you so much. I know it wasn't easy to grow up with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, these people we have a charge with, when we come to equanimity, great word, okay, there's so much more possibility available. So when you think you have a problem, interesting point of view, this is a problem. Right? Interesting point of view, I need to figure it out. Interesting point of view, it should be different. Interesting point of view. Because what happens is when you drop that positive or negative charge on it, then all of a sudden you're able to see possibilities that you had cut off by judging it. Because every judgment you have cuts you off from seeing what's really true and what's really available. Okay, like when I had the judgment, no shade at Charlie Young Beach, I couldn't receive that there was actually shade there. It stopped me from seeing that. When you're judging your body, it actually stops your body from changing. Because it creates a solidity around it. Every fixed point of view you have creates solidity. Look at little children. Little children don't have a lot of fixed points of view. And their bodies are so at ease, right? You tell them something, if you told them like this is called a car, then they would think it's a car, right? Until someone says, that's not a car, that's paper, right? They're so malleable. Would you be willing to have as much possibility as you had when you were 2? It's all a choice. It's all a choice. And part of that, having that possibility, is not making other people's judgment about you real. Okay? If you make their judgment real, you modify yourself for them. Okay? So I did a whole show, I did a radio show about this. What was it? It was about receiving, and including receiving judgment. Right? If you can receive judgment as just an interesting point of view, then no one can stop you. Right? If you look at the people who have said to Richard Branson, like, you have no business doing an airplane, doing an airline. Okay, thanks, whatever. Keep your point of view. I'm doing it anyway. Right? But a lot of other people would have just said, oh, you're right. Right? Okay, yeah, it's a dumb idea. I won't. So their judgments about you are simply an interesting point of view. And it comes down to really small things too, right? I mean, like if someone says, that color doesn't look that good on you, then you might stop wearing that color altogether because they said that. So the big and the small, it's all just an interesting point of view. So you can apply this exercise. I've done it. I teach a lot of online classes, and in one of them I did it with creations, things we'd like to create. Like, well, what would occur if that actually turns out really well? Oh, interesting point of view. Interesting point of view, because when we think, when we're creating something and we think it's going to lead to something, and we have all sorts of conclusions. Oh, if I reach 5,000 YouTube people, like subscribers, then this will happen, right? I'll get a book deal or whatever. That's a conclusion. Could be that, could be something totally different happens. So then what would happen if your creation doesn't work out? And we go into depression, or we go into, oh no, and interesting point of view. Those projections and expectations and worries are also just an interesting point of view. So it can be a super useful exercise to be like, okay, for 5 minutes, I'm going to sit with what happens if my project really works out, and what happens if it collapses and fails. Okay? It's all just an interesting point of view. I'm just creating all these ideas in my head about it, none of which are real, all of which are ideas. If I get rid of all those judgments and worries and opinions and attitudes and beliefs, then I can see what's really available. And it's actually more likely to work out, right? Because I can follow my awareness in creating it. Is this too philosophical and not real enough? Like, you're getting this? Okay. Because we can make it more real. Awesome. So, say it again.
Got it.
Awesome. Okay. You're with me. Cool. So questions to this point.
Are there more tools?
Absolutely. I can talk about tools all day.
Well, I was curious.
Yeah.
That's where we started.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm personally curious how you would define access consciousness.
Cool.
The totality of it.
Yeah. So access consciousness is a body of work that consists of all sorts of energetic and practical tools to create a more conscious life,
Okay.
right? And by conscious, like they have a definition of consciousness too, and which is consciousness includes everything and judges nothing.
Nice.
And when you're willing to be more conscious, then you open your life up to things that are beyond what you could ever have expected. More amazing.
So is it similar to mindfulness?
It's actually presence. We talk about being present. Yeah. We talk about dropping judgment. So in a way there are some parallels. And then there are other things where it's like, I'm gonna say this, don't believe anything I say. Just go out and do it and see if it works for you.
Well, it's like the Buddha said that too.
Say, yeah.
Buddha said that too when he was talking about mindfulness and meditation. To not believe anything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Thank you.
that. That's a beautiful summary.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's developed over the past just about 40 years. this work has. And I'm giving you some of the most applicable tools that you could go out today and start to use, and they change your life. And there is a one-day class. It's called the bars, and it's 32 points on the head. And what these do is they start to discharge. They start to help you let go of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that keep you stuck, that keep you from clarity. And your being knows exactly what to let go of. So you can come in with a desire and an intention, and you may receive that. You may receive something totally beyond that. So I've worked on people, and they're like, my hips changed. They've been like this for 3 years, and they've been out of alignment, and now they're back in alignment. She didn't come in asking for that. She didn't think that could happen from me just touching her head. Okay? I worked with one guy who had a brain injury, and he had one headache for 7 years, like a headache. And he also had not had like a girlfriend or a job or anything. So, and then 2 weeks after I worked on him, he had both a girlfriend and a job. He still had the headache, but he had now 2 more headaches. So, you know, I mean, like, amazing things can happen, right? And for me, I went to an intro night one night, and the woman said, 2 of you are going to have the opportunity to get on the massage table. It's done fully clothed on a massage table. So I was like, that's going to be me. And it was. And a guy touched my head for probably 20 minutes. Not a long time, not a full session. And when I got up, my head was so clear. I was like, wow. It was like meditating for 3 hours. And then, so I thought that was pretty impressive. But when I woke up the next morning, my head was still that clear. And I was like, now I'm fascinated, right? Now I need to learn this. And everyone has a different experience, you know? So, yeah, it's kind of like just starting to unwind all the patterns that aren't working for you, because that day you'll experience something likely, but also they continue over the next 3 weeks. So I always tell people, you know, after 3 weeks you'll have more of the full effect of the session, not just in that one day. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple of sessions with someone, and it didn't happen immediately, but it wasn't even part of what I was there for. But I got rid of my TMJ.
Oh, yeah. So got rid of your TMJ. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what can show up. So a lot of times people report more clarity. I feel lighter. I feel more clarity. Stuff like that. So yeah, all sorts of possibilities. And I do have a class coming up May 3rd. So you can, they offer sessions here, and I offer sessions too if you're interested. And that is one of the primary tools of Access Consciousness, you know, the bars. Yeah, because they just lead to so much more clarity and ease. Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, it says, you know, if you would just ask questions and just do the bars, you will be free in your life. You know? And I found that to be true. And the interesting point of view tool is amazing too. I mean, if you just went out and applied that to every problem you think you have, or everyone who's annoying you, or anyone who can press your buttons, you will just have so much more freedom. And you know, I'll give you this example. There's a woman who attends some functions that my husband and I go to, and you know, he and I used to both be annoyed by her. And then I learned the bars, and I was applying the tools and doing the different things, and I remember clearly, like the next year after I had taken the bars class, we ran into this woman again at a function, and my husband was like, oh, she's so annoying, and I wasn't bothered by her anymore, right? There was just nothing to push up against anymore, right? And similarly, going to my mom's house now, she is a hoarder. Like, she collects stuff. And I can be there 3 weeks, no problem now. It used to be 5 years ago, I could only be there 3 days before I was like, get me out of here, you know, and now I can be there 3 weeks. So, yeah.
You had mentioned the bars was a series of holding your head in different locations, which I've experienced with you.
Yes.
And then you said, and then I took what I learned from the bars and I run the bars. How are you able to apply off the table,
Yes.
per se? Can you talk about
That's a
that?
great question. Yeah, so you can do your own bars.
Oh, you can.
You can.
That's exciting.
It is more dynamic if someone else is willing to do it for you. And the cool thing is when you're doing a session on someone, you're also receiving the benefits. You can also ask them to run while you sleep. So you'd pick a certain set of bars. Don't pick all of them. You pick a certain, and you can pick a couple different ones and ask them to run while you sleep, and they will.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of people ask the aging toaster to run while they sleep.
Or like when you go to an event, can you be like
Oh,
in
sure.
that state of consciousness where you're
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is bar an acronym?
It isn't. It isn't. So.
How do you spell it? B-A-R-S?
Yeah, like kind of like something you'd eat. Yeah. So and someone else
What does
said
it mean?
they're bars because you're caged in and they get you free. So what it is they're energetic bars that run through your head, and they're just getting activated to
Like
release the
connection
points of view.
points.
Exactly.
So similar to meridians?
Yes. Yeah, like that, but different. Yeah.
Like neurons connecting.
Yeah, yeah, and when you are having a bar session, you are discharging the charge of polarity, that right and wrong, good and bad, which allows you to become more free. These are fun questions.
There's statements that you make when that involves right, wrong, good, bad. You can't-
Yeah, so you're referring to the clearing statement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And now that makes sense that when you're running your bars, that's what you're doing, is getting rid of the right, wrong, good.
Clearing.
yeah, yeah.
I forgot about that part.
So the bars sessions can be totally silent, and they will still work. I mean, some people go into a really deep theta brainwave state, where sometimes you're hearing everything that's going on, but you seem like you're sleeping. Like there's heavy breathing and eye movement and stuff like that. But so sometimes there's that, and then there are other times people just want to talk through the session or have clearings, and that's fine. Yeah. So we're not going to get really into the clearing statement tonight, but just consider this. Like well, let's do an exercise. So I'm going to invite you to you can keep stuff in your lap if it's comfortable and not going to slide off, but if it will, just place it aside. And close your eyes. And allow your body to soften. And sense the energy in the room around your body. So the space just around your body. And now expand your awareness throughout the room. So you're aware of all of the walls and the floor and the ceiling. Expanding beyond this room into the entire building, across the parking lot, to the ocean, to the mountain, and through the mountain, including all of this as molecules and space, and mostly space within the molecules. Expanding bigger and expands so wide that this planet becomes like a small ball within your awareness. So downward, upward, and outward, expanding in every direction. Downward, upward, and outward. Expanding across the solar system. Across the galaxy. To include this galaxy as one of trillions upon trillions of galaxies. Just expanding even more. And if you feel like you've reached an edge, expand beyond that. And beyond that. And expand a little more in the direction that it's least easy to expand in. Behind you. Whichever direction that is. And this is the space of you. The infinite you. Now, to live on a planet, you've made some choices, you've taken on some beliefs, some of which may work for you and some of which no longer do. And everything in your life is what you've created your life to be. And if you'd like to change it, it's up to you. You're the only one with the power to do that. So one of the things that you can do when you're in a contracted space or a space of upset is expand out. When you're expansive, there's more possibility present for you to tap into. That possibility is always present, but it's easier to tap into when you expand. So now, as you open your eyes, stay expanded even with your eyes open. How is that for you?
I think I zoned out there because I was so tired and I was hearing your voice lilting up and down and I thought, what did she just say?
You must have needed that. So when we're contracted,
Oops, sorry.
go ahead.
When I came here, I felt heavier. So after that, I felt lightened. And I guess the whole concept of light and heavy reminds me of the Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. Have you read that book?
No.
When he talks about expansion and contraction.
Oh, cool.
So that so it just reminded me of that and just the whole, when stuff is contracted and it is, angry and tired and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Negative emotions. The expansions is about freedom,
Yeah.
peace and serenity and calm.
Exactly.
So
What?
yeah, so it just I just felt myself floating out to the universe.
Yeah, when you tap into that, which is always available, right? It's never not available. It's always available. Then anything that's like, it doesn't seem so big, right? It just sort of dissipates because you're that big, right? It's kind of like a grain of sand in something small could bother you, but in the ocean, it's like nothing. Yeah. So that's a really useful tool to use as well. When you're like, expand out. When you're happy, expand out. And one of the questions I love to ask is, how does it get any better than this? Right? When you ask the question, how does it get any better than this, and life is terrible, you're inviting the universe to bring you something better. When you're asking, how does it get any better than this, and life is amazing, you're inviting the universe to show you, how does it get any better than this? And it does. Right? So it's not your job to figure out how, unless you think it's the larger you, right? It's the universe's job. How does it get any better than this? Let's find out. So, and what else is possible? Great question. What else is possible? Why? When we've judged, we've cut off possibility. When we're asking what else is possible, or what else is possible that I haven't considered, you're inviting new ideas in. So I have a story about that because I was teaching a workshop at the Kihei Yoga Center, what's it called now? Maui Yoga Loft. Yeah. And in their parking lot, they had a giant pothole, which I happened to get my car stuck in. Right, so I'm like, okay, what do I do about this? It wouldn't move out. It was probably 9 at night after the workshop. So I went to Rodeo General Store, which was the place that was there at the time, and the people said, oh, we're closing up now. We'll come help you. So they pushed my car, and it wouldn't do anything. Nothing. So they said, well, there's a fire station. We could all go over to the fire station. So we did. And pretty soon I was marching across South Kihei Road with like 7 firemen marching after me. And everyone was trying to push the car, and I was driving the car. Wouldn't move. So the guy says, do you have AAA? And I said, yeah. Okay, well, you're probably going to have to call AAA. I was like, I don't want to wait here for a long time. And so I said, well, what else is possible? And the guy goes, oh, I have a jack. Okay. Simple question. Oh, yeah, I have a jack. What else is possible? It's an amazing question. Because a lot of times we've thought of, our logical mind has come up with all the things we could think of, and then we ask, what else is possible? Oh, I hadn't thought of that thing. There are other possibilities available. So those 2 questions, what else is possible and how does it get any better than this, are pretty amazing for inviting new possibilities. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I don't have a question.
I'm always wondering, on a practical level, when I hear a talk like this, and it sounds just not in my generation, or maybe me in particular didn't hear this message early enough, but I'm always like wondering how people deal with, like, you have to have money to exist in the world, and everything seems to be getting more and more expensive. So these are interesting thoughts and questions, but today, all day, I was dealing with bill paying, and it was so frustrating, and it wore me out. So I just wonder if there's anything in what you deal with that would help me in that regard.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you for asking that. A lot of people have hang-ups about money. Okay? And I actually recently taught two online classes about money. And you know, one of the things that is, let's go to this. I'm like, what direction do we go with this first? Yeah, so again, money is something that people have a lot of judgments about. Okay? This is too expensive. I don't have enough money. All of these are conclusions. Okay? None of them is inviting more possibilities. Like, what would it take for me to have more money coming in? I've had lots of people ask that, and all of a sudden they've gotten bigger checks, right? Even from the government. Like, I got a huge tax refund. I taught a one-day class in San Diego, and a lady said, Kathy, I've been doing sales for like 25 years, and after your class I had my best month in sales. And on top of that, I got a huge check from the government. So you know, it's like, where do you have judgment? And every judgment cuts off the possibilities, and so how much can you come to a space of neutral? Like, okay, I think this costs too much. I think things cost too much. Interesting point of view, I think they cost too much. Interesting point of view, I don't have enough. Interesting point of view, Hawaii is expensive. Interesting point of view. Interesting point of view, right? What would it take to have more than enough money, right? With money left over at the end of the month. Inviting the universe to show you, right? Because we think money has to come from a linear way, right? Where does money come from? A job. What?
Oh, my father used to always say it doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah. Yeah. So how much have you taken? Well, especially, you know, I mean, a lot of us get the idea like you have to work hard for your money. It doesn't grow on trees, right? Money comes from work. Not necessarily. Money could come from finding it, from investments, from winning it, from, you know, someone giving it to you. I had a client, she said she was a nurse at a hospital. She was really nice to this old guy, probably nicer than anyone, and he gave her like this ginormous check. Just because he wanted to, right?
Yeah, I think you're kind of speaking to the power of intention, but I'm just going to preface this, you know, you saying okay, I just want to put out that I'm 59 years young. So 3 weeks ago, I went to, well, actually it's almost been like 4 weeks ago, I played volleyball, and then I went to have dinner, and then I was going to catch bus to Fourth Fridays. Well, I missed the bus. Okay, in the meantime, I wanted to get a massage. Massage is $100. So I had to walk because I missed the bus. Well, the funny thing about it is also funny about it. Well, I was thinking about they sell like cane juice on Fridays, and I love cane juice because I'm from the South, and it kind of reminds me of being grown up on the farm with my grandmother, my granddad, and stuff like that. So I'm walking on the street on the way, and I see this money blow out into the street, and so it blows out into the traffic, right? But the cars stop. They come to a stoplight, and so I chased the money down. And I just assumed it was a $5 bill, right? But then when I got closer, I just assumed it was a $20 bill. It was a $100 bill.
I love
Can you
that.
believe that? I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
That's wild.
Like, thank you, universe. There's my massage.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. And again, if we are so caught up in conclusion, you know, how many people did not see that money going by? Okay? How many people are on their cell phones? Not, right?
Right.
Yeah. You received it.
Yeah, I received it.
Yeah.
Well, I called it out, and the universe gave it to me. Right?
Yeah. And so, like, I mean, so many people cut off their possibilities of money by expecting it only to come from one way. It only comes from the government, or it only comes from, you know, my savings, or it only comes from working. Well, that just, okay, the universe, whatever you're saying, the universe is also saying yes, right? So if you say it only comes from that, the universe is like, yes. Awesome. That's how you're going to receive it. Okay? When you're saying, okay, well, I get most of it from this way, but What other possibilities for money are there? Where else would money like to come from? Guess what? You're going to see many more possibilities for money. Right? You will. Right? Money is just energy, like an energy that we use to receive other things. It's just energy. Right? And we have all these judgments and conclusions about it, most of which aren't actually ours. They're other people's that we thought is true.
Yeah, I guess that's exactly where something I wanted to ask about, because when we talk about money, my mind often circles around scarcity,
Yeah.
and then it circles around like, I'm gonna say like desire, or I need to get this, I want to get this, and money's too scarce, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like those types of thoughts kind of are closing me off from possibilities, because those are judgments, those are all that.
Yeah.
So help.
Okay,
What
cool.
suggestions?
Okay, so you look at the thing that you would like to have, and okay, is that light? Right? Because sometimes it's not actually. Right? We want it because. Right? I'll give an example. I want to be thin because it's going to get me this. Right? Well, you really want that. You don't care so much about it. Okay. Or I want the raise because it's going to give me this. When you look at it, it's actually heavy because you don't actually want to be doing that job that would have the raise. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like trying to get behind whatever it is you want and look at the underlying desire, emotion, or
Yeah.
feeling, or whatever it is that you might
Yeah.
really be going for.
Yeah. So then if you look at it and you say, yes, it is light. It is something I'd like to have, right? Okay. Well, what else is possible for me to have this? Let's say I'm going to use, because this came recently into my experience. This guy wanted to go hiking in Chile, in glaciers, right? Patagonia. Okay. So at the tip of Chile, always wanted to go do that. And he's like, then he saw, oh, I can enter this contest and win my dream vacation. Awesome, right? I'm gonna win a trip to Chile. So he gets all excited and he starts doing his essay about Chile, and then, like, for some reason he entered a scratch lotto thing and won $25,000. Okay? And then the next day his friend called up and said, hey, I'm going on a trip, want to go with us? Sure, where are you going? To Chile. So he didn't win the contest, but he got to Chile, right? So we think like, I don't have enough for this thing. And then, so the universe is saying yes. Oops. Okay. What would it take to be able to have this thing? What would it take to be able to go on this trip? Whatever it is. Like, because if you're saying, I don't have enough for this thing, the universe is like, okay, sure. Ask and you receive. Your wish is granted. You don't have enough. Whereas if you're like, okay, cool. What would it take? Show me. I'd like to go. Or I'd like to have this. And it can show up in miraculous, amazing ways that you wouldn't have ever imagined.
And I've heard the saying, we always get what we want most.
Yes.
So especially if it's something that's bringing lightness and you focus your attention on it and you act as though it is happening, then it's going to come.
Yeah, the universe is always saying yes, pretty much. So if you're saying there's not enough and it's too expensive and it's hard, the universe is like, cool, yes. And if you're like, this is a world full of possibilities and I find money on the street and it's cool, and the universe has my back, the universe is like, yes. Does it like one person more than the other? No. It's just, that's what they're asking for. Right? And you can be a person who's like, oh, universe, can you give me money, please? And then go be like, oh, shit, all these bills, this is horrible. Guess what? Both are asks. right? So now you're just canceling out those other asks with how you're functioning around the bills. Instead of like, thank you, I'm so grateful I have electricity. Glad I have the money for electricity. Life is way better with electricity. And it's not a matter of you're wrong if you're not happy about it or grumbling about the bills. It's just like when you catch it, change it. Right? When you catch it, change it. That's it. There's always another possibility available. An interesting point of view. Then you can find the areas that are really sticky and be like, oh, interesting point of view, there's not enough. Interesting point of view, I've bought into scarcity. Interesting point of view, I get frustrated with money and about money. Interesting point of view, it could happen to him, for him, but not for me, right? That's a big one too, right? I know this works for those people. I did a whole class yesterday, clearing the points of view that are keeping you from having a life you love. And that's one of the things we came to. Like, oh, yeah, I think it's possible for these people, but not for me, right? Or I think I have to work really hard for it. Interesting point of view. We used the clearing statement with all that stuff. And the clearing statement is really about destroying and uncreating what you've energetically created that's not working for you. Right? If you have something in your life that's not working for you, who created it? You did. Which means you can uncreate it. You can choose something different. Right? And the other thing is, being this aware being, you're so aware, so super aware, that you pick up on other people's thoughts, feelings, emotions, judgments, all of that. And you're just aware of it, and then often you think it's yours. Okay? So another really fun tool, and if you'll use this for 3 days straight, just with everything, it's amazing. Body pains go away, like all the chatter in your head gets calmed down. It is when you have a thought or a pain or whatever it is, you can either ask, is it someone else's? Or you can ask, who does this belong to? And if it lightens up at all, that means it wasn't yours to begin with. You were just aware. Okay? You're like SpongeBob soaking up everybody else's stuff. Who does this belong to? Oh, you could even say, return it to sender with consciousness. Or, is this someone else's? Return it to sender with consciousness. You know how many people have changed their anxiety just from that tool? I have a friend who couldn't go beyond a mile beyond her house without getting extreme anxiety. And she could never go over bridges. She'd go around streets just to not go over bridges. Totally changed because it was just her awareness of other people's anxiety, not her own. Who does this belong to? Return it to sender of consciousness.
Yeah, and the opposite works too, because I've never been a fan of flying. So some years ago I was on a plane, and this little girl was sitting next to me, and she was just happy and bubbly, and here I am. Like, this is supposed to be fed off her.
Yeah.
She's not worried, why should I be worried?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. So, the other thing when you have scarcity, thank you for that, is you can be like, okay, right now from where I am, let me tap into the energy of people who are prosperous. What's that like?
Who are what?
Prosperous. Who are in prosperity consciousness.
Oh.
Who are prosperous.
Instead of poverty.
Yeah. And tap into that. It's available too.
Yeah. Borrowing the frequency.
Exactly.
You can hang out with people who have a certain consciousness, and you can actually, if you're open to it, receive that.
Yeah.
And I often ask myself, if I have a thought that's really uncomfortable and that I'm feeling anxiety around, I'll often say, is this thought making me feel light and bright. And if not, what, maybe I should choose a different thought, right? Because there's many thoughts out there.
So many. Yeah. It's a great one. Yeah, it's like there's always another possibility available.
And often we get stuck in our problems. Find some comfort in being a problem.
Yeah. So, and so we've addressed a lot of tools tonight, right? We've talked about asking questions. Even if you just start to do that more, life will start to open up. We've talked about interesting point of view. Interesting point of view is amazing for getting you unstuck, for bringing more clarity. Because again, whenever you've judged something, you've cut off your awareness in that area. We do this in any area of our life, right? With our body, with our partners, or any relationships, with all sorts of things. And of course, any area where you think you have a problem is a great area to just kind of start to pick apart your points of view about it, right? And my friend even says, like, okay, when you have a goal that you'd like to have, you say, why can't I have this? And then you list out 10 reasons, if you have 10, that you can't have it. And then, interesting point of view, I can't have it because I'm too lazy. Interesting point of view, it's hard. Interesting point of view, it takes too much money. Interesting point of view, whatever it is.
I don't deserve it.
There you go, that's a big one too, right? Yeah, interesting point of view, it would make my family uncomfortable. Right? That one's a big one for a lot of people too. Or all the people I love, right? I'd lose them because I have this. So starting to dissect all that, because it's just a ball of conclusions, right? It's made up. It's made up. You're so creative, right? So creative. It's like, what if you use that creativity to actually create what it is you'd like to have, rather than all the reasons you can't have it? And also, are all of those points of view yours, or are you just aware that people think that? Okay, return it to sender with consciousness. It's not even mine. Okay? We talked about expanding out. We talked about light and heavy. Yeah, and if you'll just go apply 1 or 2 of these things and see how it works, how does it get any better than this? I know people who ask that all day long. What else is possible? Now, when you ask what else is possible, start to actually receive the possibilities. Because there are people who just say, what else is possible? And then they don't even pause to receive a different awareness. They'll just keep on doing the same thing they've been doing, which doesn't actually create greater possibilities for them. So, do you have any questions at this point?
I have one. I have a hearing problem, and I have tried hearing aids, and they weren't successful for me, and I tried going a couple different places to get a different kind, and first of all, they're very expensive, and it's non-refundable. Like, so if they don't work for you, you have
Oh, wow. Yeah.
you have something that you still have to pay for, even if you don't want to use them, or you don't find any improvement, or they're just too much. They create noises that give unpleasant feelings, and I just wondered if you've ever helped any client who had a hearing problem get out of that without having to go for hearing aids.
There are clients who, there's a book called, there's a book of different energetic processes, and there are several for hearing. So those have been useful for some of the clients.
Do you know the name of the book?
Oh, it's like Access Consciousness. You take the bars as kind of the door to other classes, and then one of the routes you can go is to learn all these different energy processes. So it's called the 3-day body class, and I teach those classes, and I facilitate those sessions too. So yeah, there are eye processes, there are ear processes, there's immune system processes, different processes for the body. I have one client who comes, he's got COPD. He said, Kathy, I don't believe in your stuff, but it's the only thing that works for me. I was like, good thing you don't have to believe in it. Yeah, isn't that? Yeah, he said the medicine doesn't work, the doctors don't do anything, all the herbs and anything, nothing works. Your stuff works. I don't believe in it. Like, okay.
Is he on oxygen? Was he on oxygen?
He's been on oxygen off and on. Sometimes those people are more prone to pneumonia and things, in which case he's been on oxygen more when he has that. But yeah, he's definitely gotten a lot better, which is amazing. Yeah. So you don't have to believe in it, but it might help. So yeah, and the body processes are what I do with him. So yeah. What? Anything else? Thank you for all your participation and your questions.
Could you tell us a little bit about your upcoming?
Yeah, I will. I have some books here actually, because I got out of my own way and made. I didn't make these two. I just have a chapter in possibilities in parenting, and I'm having it. And then I made this one, Relationships Done Easy. And a lot of people are like, relationships are not easy. And I'm like, for you, they're not, because that's your point of view. Right? And then here I have these flyers, yes. So I have a 1-day bars class on May 3rd. So that certifies you as a bars practitioner. If you would like to go do the bars on other people, you can